and we'll continue the conversation as we look at the speech of the President, Muhammadu Buhari, what he said was going to happen. Someone said he hit the ground running when he spoke about the fact that the command post in the fight against Boko Haram is being moved to Maiduguri. Is that happening immediately? As the Commander-in-Chief has spoken to you, you're sure that the military will hit the ground running as well? Gimba Omar will come back later, but I have a co-anchor in the studio, and I've also been joined by a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Dele Additional. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
And Harriet Agbenye is here as well.
Well, thank you so much, Nyoto. Great to be here this afternoon.
Yes, indeed. I know you watched it from home.
I tried to, as best as I could. You know, for a day like this, one would expect that we'll have, you know, power, electricity, you know, to watch such an inaugural transition from one government to another. But unfortunately, that was, you know, wishes that beggars could, you know, hope to get a horse to ride on. But I managed to get a couple of, you know, what the president, you know, said, and I was quite excited about it, especially since he talked about power. Now, that's one thing everybody has had on their minds for a very long time since the privatization of Power Holding Company of Nigeria. We've expected to see electricity supply more than quadruple. So to speak, we will have challenges with vandalism of gas pipelines, the distribution companies, the generating companies, and the rest of it. But yes, like you said, it's a very a tough time for the president President Buhari, because he's going to hit the ground running. There's so many challenges on the ground waiting to be addressed. Indeed.
So let's begin with you, Mr. Adesina. What is your take on all that the president has reeled out? I mean, high expectations. He also talked about the expectations of the international community from Nigerians. But what's your take?
Well, it is very gratifying to note that Mr. President recognizes that there are high expectations, not only within Nigeria, but outside Nigeria. Secondly, let me say that the presidential speech, inaugural speech, was straight to the point. As brief as it is, it captures the focal points that Nigerians are looking towards to see definitive change and progress. One is not surprised, because apart from heads of state during the military era and all that, I think President Buhari will stand out as one person who wanted to be president and who is today the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Others, either by chance or by luck, had become presidents of Nigeria. But this one person who sat down and said, I want to be president. And I want to believe that he knows why he wanted to be president. And today he is president. And that is also one of the reasons why he cannot fail the expectations of Nigerians. The key issues of Boko Haram, unemployment, power, and all that were also mentioned. And I was also very happy when he said that the commanding headquarters will be moving. That is the center of the world, not Abuja. And I believe that those who are in a position to execute that decision will go back to the drawing board immediately and begin to set process in motion to actualize that instructions and order from the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces. On the issue of unemployment, he said it appropriately well. Nigeria is one nation that has not paid enough attention to the unemployment of its teeming youths. But at the same time, we are setting up more universities, both public and private. All right? It is illogical that we are producing manpower that are not being used. Employable but unemployed youths in society is dangerous.
Mr. Adesina, strong words that the president used.
Yes.
Straight to the point, precise.
Yes.
But did you also think about some of the legal implications, some of the legalities that might need to be considered in the course of carrying out some of these things he's talked about?
Yes, some of them will definitely involve consideration of some legal details. For example, the issue of power. All right? Certain steps were taken by the immediate past administration. And those steps, I believe, were backed up by law.
Okay. Let me interrupt you and bring in Mr. Afolabi. Muyiwa, You are a social reformer,
Correct.
so to speak. Now,
Yeah.
based on what the president talked about, I know Harriet is itching to fire away. Do you think the how do you say, the impetus is on ground? Because he's not a lone man. He needs to have a team.
Yes.
Do you think there's the material to work with?
Well, for me, it's about looking at the issues that have occurred before now and the various activities and events that brought about this change that a lot of Nigerians actually wanted and they, I believe, voted for. And today, when you hear the speech of the president, it's not a speech where he talked to us as a people in terms of our responsibilities and what we should be doing as Nigerians. I think it's a speech that dwelt more about us, about our issues, about our challenges, about our various areas where we require improvement. He wasn't talking to us as individual Nigerians that you need to be more responsible, you need to be more accountable, you need to be more disciplined. No, he didn't dwell so much on the expectations of Nigerians because it's as though there's been so much pressure on Nigerians as citizens given so much. So I think the style of the delivery of this particular speech was more about, yes, I can see your challenges, we can feel your pain, and we're making these decisions now, almost immediately, to address what your pressures are. So for me, it's a speech that is tied to Nigerians anchoring on to the faith they have more in the personality of Mr. President, the credibility of Mr. President. So it's not a matter of the people around him, as it were. It's about trusting his person. He's someone that we're all familiar with, a former president or a former military head of state, and we've seen what he's done. It's about the credibility of his person. And we are trusting that it doesn't matter who he has around him because of who he is. And that was one thing no one could use against him during the electoral process. Issue of him being corrupt or him not being a straightforward, it never arose. So it's a matter of trusting his person, and that's where I think the faith and the belief of a lot of Nigerians are tied to, and I think that's why a lot of us are excited this morning.
Well, just before you get to that, Muyiwa, I'd like
Yes.
to actually, bring you back to something you mentioned. You said this is a new season.
Correct.
And we know that President Buhari stands for no to corruption, zero tolerance to corruption,
Correct.
ensuring that there's good corporate governance
Correct.
across the public sector as well as in the private sector
Correct.
as well. But do you think that Nigerians are ready for a hard reset? Because it's deep. It's deep in the system, and we definitely need a reset.
Yes, as I was listening to the speech, there was one thing that I noticed, and I said it earlier. He wasn't talking to us. He was talking about us. And I believe, I was wondering why that, because a lot of presidents during the inaugural speech, they always talk about, I need your support, I need your help, I need you to sacrifice, I need you to do this. And I think Nigerians have done that for a long time, and they've heard a lot of inaugural speeches, a lot of promises, and a lot of plans and everything that never materialized. So I think that's why this particular speech is not taking that kind of format that people are used to. So he is not talking to us. But what I want to say, based on what I've heard him say this morning, is Nigerians at this point in time need to understand that this change we're talking about is not going to come from him as a person alone. It's time for each one of us to begin to take on the thinking of change. And that's why I said it's a new season. It's time for us to be responsible as fathers, as mothers, as siblings, as individual citizens of Nigerians, of Nigeria, doing the right thing either in the public sector, in the private sector, wherever it is that we find ourselves. It's time to connect with the spirit of the center, the spirit of the person in the center, support him not just in what we say, but by the way we act and our new behaviors. So I believe that when there's credibility in who is leading, naturally, it will pass on to the followership. I think will reflect the person of Mr. President.
Mr. Additional, you were itching to add a comment to what
Yes,
was said.
I agree very substantially with what my good friend said, but he said that it doesn't matter who is around him. The person at the center matters. I disagree a little there.
Okay.
Because leadership is not one person. Leadership, although one person is very important in the sense of directing the pace and sitting at the driver's seat, but the people around Mr. President, are key to the achievement of his goals. If you have a goal and you have dream killers around you, the goal will not find fulfillment. So he needs to sit down and pick the people who share his views and aspirations and his goals for this country so that they can run the race together in common. He needs to And I hope Mr. President has started trying to do that, to separate politics from administration. We need an administrator. We need a president that will administer this nation now the way it should be administered, without undue consideration to this is my party man or this is not my party man. So, I think he has the pedigree to achieve this. That is just the area of distinction.